All right, we are back for another episode of Ed Table Talks, and I am so thrilled. I'm one of your hosts, Justine Gonzalez with Ed Table Talks. I'm the founder and CEO of Educator Aid, where we support schools in creating culturally connected and inclusive, equitable learning environments. I'm really thrilled to be here with my co-host, Blake. And he's going to introduce himself real quick, and then I'm super thrilled because we have a super special guest on this episode who is just such a dynamic leader and has great unique story of how he came to Indianapolis. So Blake, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, man, I would definitely take the baton. So I am Blake Nathan, the CEO and founder of the Educate Me Foundation. Our mission is to diversify the national teaching population by recruiting and retaining more educators of color. As Justine just mentioned, we're excited to have one of, we think like, top draft picks moving, to Indianapolis to, launch a school here soon, man. And so for us, to him to come to the Midwest, to Circle City, we're excited to for him to share his story, share information about his school model, and really asking some questions that are really going around and plaguing our communities, not only here in Indianapolis, but on a national level as well. So, Justine, you would like to kick off our first question?
I sure will. So, Jeff, if you just want to introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your school model and what led you to that. So, if you want to start with your journey in education, that's great too. But if you can kind of give an idea to our viewers of where you're at as a school leader and what your school model is for Promise Prep.
No, good looking out. I think first and foremost, thank you very much for having me here. I truly appreciate y'all for connecting and giving me the space to speak. And draft pick, just I hope I'm not saying buoy. You know what I mean? That's so
we don't want buoy.
That's a new buoy there. So
Yeah.
that's my goal. But ultimately, I'll just name, like, once again, my name is Jeff Fenelus. I'm actually originally from Brooklyn, New York. And I came out to Indianapolis about a year ago with my family, my wife and my two kids, to be an innovation fellow with the Mind Trust. And being an innovation fellow is a 2-year fellowship that allows me to spend, 2 years incubating a quality school in potential partnership with the IPS school district to add to their portfolio. For me, like, when I think about my school, I actually think about my story and who I am personally. So, like, I was born to a beautiful immigrant mother that came from Haiti, who left her country because of the lack of opportunities as related to education and finances. She loved the country. It was beautiful in many different ways, but Haiti was led by a dictator for a long period of time, and 90% of the population was illiterate. So my mom had to go someplace where she could find more opportunity, which was the United States. So for me, like, a lot of the work that I do is actually grounded in my mom's personal experience, because she came from a third world country. And I think we live in a first world country. And I strongly believe that the inequities, we can truly problem solve it if everyone does it collectively together, and we put aside politics and actually really focus on giving kids quality. And for me, that's what drives me. As my mom always told me, if she can read, she'd be able to do more, have more opportunities. So I fundamentally just believe that, if kids can read, they can teach themselves anything. And I think that's like a fundamental right. And it's a political act as well. So for me, that's what drives me all the time, because I always think about, like, what my mother could do if she was able to have a high quality education, and how she'd be able to tap into her potential more. And not to say that she hasn't done great things, because she definitely has, and she's a brilliant, beautiful person. But I think, like, if she was able to read a text, she'd be able to read a Toni Morrison text and connect with Toni Morrison as she reads The Bluest Eye. But my mom doesn't have that access. And I think too many kids that become adults don't get the access, because sometimes the school may not be quality. So that's like what I want to do. I want to ensure that we have high quality options for all kids. So that's how Promise Prep came to be. My story as an educator also stems from, I was not going to be an educator at first. I honestly wanted to be an investment banker. Classic hood kid story. Wanted to be an investment banker, make us a lot of money, give back to the hood, and contribute in many different ways. I graduated 2009, but the market crashed in 2008. And then I had to look for different options. And I think that was a pivotal moment in my life, because I think if I would continue going down the road of investment banking, I would have invested in stocks and bonds, But however, I think we should pivot into investing in children, communities, and families. So with me right now, I'm happy I fell into that because after I decided to jump out of working as a banker, I then became a special education teacher, teaching in 12 to 1 classrooms in the highest um, poverty school district in New York City. Then I moved on to being like a basketball coach, social studies teacher, then moved on to being a dean of students, then assistant principal at one of the highest performing schools in New York City. And I love that school, but I strongly felt that I could have added more value in other contexts because I felt like at that space or that school, I that's a cat meow. It's probably won't need something, but she's all right. But I also just felt like um, that it was such a well-oiled machine that it didn't really need me. Like I wasn't adding super value to it, and I felt like I wanted to be someplace where I could add more value. So then I went into a school that had 7 principals in 5 years, and I took it over and we turned it around. And for me, that was like my pivotal point, like what I wanted to do as it relates to school. It's just working in schools that's been chronically underperforming as it relates to their potential, and just like allowing us to realign it back into its potential. And like for me, that's like what drives me and wanting to do work. And as I've gone through education and my personal experience, I felt like how we manifest promise purpose like through a prong approach is like first like we just believe in career and college readiness. Like we ensure that we prepare kids for those opportunities. I think it's an obligation. If kids opt out of that, it's all right, but it's my job to ensure that you have that, whether it's exposure to college curriculum or it's exposure to transferable skills to sustain college or be a professional. I think it's an obligation. The second thing is like rigorous and joyful learning. Like I think at the end of the day, like everything we do is for the kids, but it's about the adults. So we have a strong culture in which we develop and train teachers because we all know teachers have the highest impact on students. The third thing is like I'm an athlete. I played sports. I did arts growing up. So like I believe in a well-rounded education for every single kid. Like I was good at school, but basketball made me better. So like I feel like I would be doing a disservice if I don't ensure or push with everything in my power to ensure that we have a culture that provides that space for kids. Because sometimes a kid can become a better reader if they have a hook. And for me, basketball is that hook. And I think we just need to figure out what are the other hooks in kids' lives to ensure that they can tap into their academic potential. And then lastly, like we all know families and community partnership means everything. So ensure that we in line and push to have strong family relationships that is based on the premise of like trust, but also accountability. And the same thing with community partners, whether it's authentic or strategic.
Man, that was some jewels right there, man. Those some jewels right there for sure. Exciting, man. And I'm still fascinated by your story about Haiti and your mom, and so I was almost kind of like feel like that's kind of like your mom had a little bit with you the reason that you named it Promise Prep. Like I feel like is there anything that's tied into the name? Like why did you decide to name it Promise Prep?
Not for me, why honestly, like I just strongly believe every human being has unique potential and everyone deserves a fair shot to tap into it. And I didn't think potential prep sounded good. So I actually, I pull up the dictionary and I thought about what other words actually really is extremely powerful. So, but the concept is I think every single child has promise and like it's our obligation to deliver on that. And I think that strongly believe in that. Like at the core, I just believe like good or bad, people can be looked at as good or being bad, but everyone has potential. And I think the great thing about school is that we can create the culture and the condition and the soil to allow people to tap into it. And I think the biggest disservice that we do to human beings is not allowing people to have a fair shot at tapping into that.
I love it. I mean, are you speechless, Blake?
Yeah, man.
I'm speechless now.
Dropping bars today, man.
So I studied little Jay-Z once upon.
Yeah, man. Hey, shout out to Jay-Z too, man, with the deal, man. That's talking about education, so man, good stuff though. So next question we want to ask you. Of course, we are dealing with a couple pandemics, but we're going to talk about the first one, which is COVID. And as you are a new school leader, a school founder, trying to start your own charter school, potentially hopefully charter school network, I'm speaking to an existent, right? How are you navigating being a new school leader or a new school founder during this COVID pandemic? How are you navigating? What are some hurdles and obstacles that you're currently facing on trying to launch your school?
I mean, I think first I would even jump into it before I even go into leading at school. I'm dealing with it as a parent. So that's giving me like a real grounded experience of the pain points of it, but also like the joys of it as well. So like I think as a parent, I'm learning a lot. As a school leader, I'm learning a lot. The fortunate thing is that we don't start until 20, like our school won't launch until 2021, 2022. So what we have is what I like to call the grace of time. But I also say like accountability comes with that because like if anything reoccurs going into our year, like we should fully be able to study it. So what we're doing right now is like studying schools within Indianapolis and outside of the context to see who's doing remote learning, hybrid school really, really well, because this actually could be our new norm. So we're ensuring that we're prepared at every level to make sure that we are prepared if anything was to continue around this COVID virus. And then lastly, we also invested. We was fortunate enough to be able to bring on a school leader to support around our instruction and academics with Promise Prep. And right now, she's actually a part of a national learning community that focuses on remote learning, and they share best practices weekly, and it's a year fellowship. So what we're doing is we're not just studying or seeing the landscape, but we're also seeing how people are using it in practice and practicing it every single week as well to make sure that we're not missing a beat, or we are opening up our networks so we can problem solve and be one call away from someone that can support us in like ensuring that we have the best conditions for our kids when we open up.
I love it. I love it. Justine, you want to ask?
Awesome.
This is really up your alley right here. The
It
second part of the
is,
question.
it is.
So,
And I have to make a reference because since I've connected with Jeff before, I know he loves Anthony Muhammad
Yes.
and his work. So I'm going to lead up to the question with a couple things I know about his work, which would be he talks about two factors that are so essential. And you talked about the role of a teacher, right? And two of the things he says that are pivotal to transforming schools and sustaining school cultural changes would be flexibility of staff, right? Clearly, we have to have that with COVID and also launching any new school or program. But secondly, he says they have to have the ability to confront one another. And so what comes to mind when I think about that is not only are you launching and planning to launch a school in the midst of a pandemic and navigating that, you are also navigating the fact that racial tensions are at an all-time high. And we know historically there was a definite dehumanization of Black people who were brought to the States. That's how this country was founded. We know systemic racism exists. My question to you, and what I'm also curious about, was what was that like coming to the States and now also being a leader amidst this? What are your thoughts on everything going on and how you plan to approach that in the future? Because you do, like you said, you have that grace. And we interviewed somebody else on another episode, and they've launched, right? So now they're juggling COVID-19 and also how do we engage community conversations? How do we train our teachers? Do you want to just talk a little bit? I threw a lot out there, but I know that you're very organic with conversation. So what are your personal thoughts, your approach with that, and what you're thinking as far as preparing your teachers? I know you're definitely a culture guy, so take it any direction you feel led.
I mean, I think the first thing you said, and you referenced Dr. Anthony Muhammad, I always gotta like acknowledge him. Great, great researcher, great person, practitioner that's done phenomenal work, and he's also a man of color in education. So I just want to just like shout out Dr. Anthony Muhammad because his work actually changed my life in many different ways. But I would say I think the first thing is like before we can go external, I can name everything else. I got to push myself to actually do the work myself and actually ask myself like, what are some biases? Um, what are some fears? What are some issues that I have in the current context? So like the first step is I've just been doing a lot of self work and really like reflecting through reading, through ensuring that I'm taking care of myself mentally, and through having conversations with honestly friends that look like me and friends that don't look like me, and just being direct about it as well. I think right now, the fortunate thing is like, I think like it's hidden, it, the tensions or racial tensions has hit a huge pass. And I think right now is like, I believe like one of our values at Promise is turn obstacles into opportunities. And I think there is an opportunity within these obstacles right now around reflection that we got to seize as leaders. And I think we also got to push our white counterparts that say they're true partners in this to actually really do the work, because at the end of the day, like, I can do what's in my purview, but everyone else can. How the work moves is how you handle things within the locus you control. So having direct conversations with family members that have biases that can impact kids. And then lastly, what I would say too is that one thing I did notice and I've been really pushing myself on is like one thing I really can do to ensure that we create equity and racial justice is making sure that the kids that are in my building are proficient and on grade level. Like through that process and like really focusing on that, I then can actually push my people on their biases, because like it takes a lot to believe that a black and brown kid who historically people have said is inferior intellectually can be proficient in a school to be proficient at a 75% level. Like, you know what I mean? It's like for me, another thing is that I go back to is like, what is in my locus control and what is something I can do that's like surrounded around student achievement. And then we leverage that to then push people on their biases and push them on cultural competencies around that as a focal point, because like that is actually where the work actually belongs to. And I think a lot of it's like doing self-work and being direct and creating a culture in which people can have honest dialogue and not fear for saying something, because at the end of the day, people got to be able to put their true thoughts on the table so that we actually can clear it. And that's like my belief in that. And then personally, as an organization, we just invested in a, what is, I think, 32 hours of professional development with just instructions, in which we did deep work around standards, instructional standards, which then led us to actually talk about inequities, and then it actually taught us about research that spoke about biases and race in this country historically. And that pushed our whole team, because at the end of the day, we figured like, yes, this didn't, like, we actually read the text stamped from the beginning, and literally this has been stamped since the beginning. And we leverage that to then look at like, what is the work we got to do day to day, and how we can't forget, like, at the end of the day, like, getting kids to be proficient and on grade level or above can really change the game in many different ways. And that's one way to actually begin to check a system in which 80% of the people don't look like the kids. Because at the end of the day, like, we're gonna have to really do the work. It's not one of those like, I can do it. I can say like, nah, collectively, I have to work on my skills on actually creating community and creating belief, and then enrolling people into the possibility of creating quality for kids as well, and checking their biases through that process as well. Because that's another thing. Like, this is actually a collective effort, and it's actually a hard thing, because as a black male, I want to be like, hey, look, like, I want to problem solve this, but the reality is, like, as a leader, I'm gonna have to step up and check people, step up and find people that are aligned, that look like me, and some people that don't look like me as well, and push them, and then really leverage like student achievement and student proficiency, meaning being on grade level, as a way to actually push people in the conversation. Because I'll tell you this much, tell some people that 100% of black kids that live in poor areas can be proficient, and you really see where people's biases are. And I'm not saying like names like, oh yeah, they can pass, like literally, like make it happen. That's when you see where people's true beliefs are.
That's right. Well, I love your spirit, Jeff. And you're such an exemplary model of being an introspective leader in every way, shape, and form. And I just think that's such a powerful message, because I know so many viewers, they want an insight into what it's like to be a school leader, what it's like to be a principal. And I know and I feel that I'm sure what you shared will speak to many, many people who see this. So thank you, because even just what you said, especially towards the end, about focusing so much on yourself. A lot of times I think because we are in a service industry, we think that might be selfish. And you have to start with yourself, because how you see the world is how you lead the world. And just owning where we each are. And I just thank you so much, because I love listening to you talk about your beliefs and your goals with things. So anything to add, Blake?
Well,
we're speechless once again.
I mean, no, man. First off, I just want to, on behalf of me as your team, man, thank you again for carving time out your busy schedule two little ones, man, trying to start a school. It's eight something at night. So our viewers that's probably watching this, we don't know what time it may be when you watch this, but tune in. But for you to carve out time in your busy schedule, man, definitely appreciate that. And being transparent and open and, and candid, I definitely respect it for sure, man. And yeah, you're definitely not going to be a one draft pick bust, man. We got faith in you, man. And so we hope you will be like, who was the top pick, man? LeBron, man, number one pick, came out the gate.
Pressure, man.
Okay. That's pressure, hey.
Wait. With that though, final question, Jeff, so we don't forget. If people are like, whoa, I love this guy, I want to support whatever he's doing with Promise Prep, where can they find you? Where can they find Promise Prep? How can people donate their resources, their time? Where can people find you or information about Promise Prep? Is there a place for them to do that?
Yeah, two things. You can go to the website, just gives an overview of who we are and what we do and what we're about, which at promiseprepindy.org. Once again, it's promiseprepindy.org. Or you can email me directly at gfenelus@promiseprepindy.org. I don't take this lightly. Anytime we get an opportunity to talk, like, this is not really my comfort zone doing this, but the reality is, like, we're trying to get kids to be proficient. We're really trying to, like, transform things. So I got to get outside my comfort zone as well. And, like, I think everything begins with effort. And this is a part of the process. So, like, I just want to acknowledge you guys for taking the time to connect with me. And also just allowing me to be myself. Like, sometimes, I'm in my head, you want to be perfect or sound the right way. But you know what? Sometimes, like, just being who I am is what's needed. So I appreciate y'all for doing that. And there's also, like, honestly, I just want to acknowledge, man, there's been a lot of people that's been extremely supportive since I've been here. I don't want to just go shout out people left and right. Like it's the Source Awards music video.
Like the draft, like it's the draft.
I just want to acknowledge, man. I speak to these people all the time, but I appreciate people that just been supportive with just energy, feedback, time, or just being good examples or exemplars for me, so I can watch and study. And I think a lot of people have done the work within the context. I just want to just say thank you for doing that. I think I don't take it lightly, and we'll build off. Promise Prep will build off of that. And last, I just want to acknowledge though too, I've been lucky and fortunate enough to onboard 2 people to my team. I have a phenomenal school leader by the name of Christy Jones, and we have a director of operations by the name of Leland Brown. 2 tremendous leaders that are helping take Promise Prep to the next level. But I'll be remiss if I didn't actually just say their names. And then also, if I'm on this, I got to shout out my wife. She ain't here right now. But thank you very much. A lot of this work I wouldn't be able to do, honestly, if she didn't have my back on this. So, like I said, this is a team effort, man. We're just trying to contribute to the context and add value, man. So anyone that want to connect, if you're for innovation work or even against innovation work, please holler at me. I'll listen and I'll take your feedback. Appreciate it.
Love it.
Awesome. Thank you all for tuning in. This has been another episode of Ed Table Talks with Blake, and I'm Justine. We're signing off with this episode. Thank you so much.